You are looking live at two undisclosed and very dark locations from which Danny Leroux and I are recording here on YouTube. First live YouTube in a while, and looking forward to getting all of your comments because we are going to discuss something that's a little different than our normal Dunc'd On topic, where we are always rooted entirely in objective fact. We would never allow any subjectivity to creep into our analysis whatsoever, except for today, when we will discuss our aesthetic teams, all aesthetic and anti-aesthetic teams. I don't know who will, if we're going to name these teams after like some all-star or something like that. So I encourage y'all in the comments to jump in and give us your players that you love to watch, that you hate to watch. And we can, of course, weigh in on those players as well. Also want to encourage everyone watching on YouTube to like and subscribe and hit that little bell for notifications when we do go live or when a new Dunc'd On drops on YouTube. All right, Danny, let's start with this. What do you like to watch? What pleases the eye of one Danny Leroux?
I mean, there are a lot of things that do. I think that I love players who are good and willing passers. I love players who play hard. I like players who don't excessively foul draw, though I guess that'll be more in the negative side of it. And then I like guys who can thrive within kind of the team flow of the game. Like if somebody can be a good cutter, if somebody can fit within that sort of thing, that's something else that I like. And of course, like the old traditional stuff, good ball handlers, good shooters. I'm on board with that too, of course.
Yeah, I think I'm obviously have never been a coach at any kind of a serious level, but I like to think that at least to some degree that my aesthetics would mirror the type of player that if I were coaching them, I would really like to have them on my team. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, though, is just simply what I like to watch. What does the fan in me like to see? Are you a spectacular player? Are you someone who improves their skill level, who has myriad skills where you never know what's coming next with this guy? And I'll second what you said about the team concept. Obviously, more athletic guys making more spectacular plays, guys who play fast, guys who make quick decisions, guys who speed up the game on offense or on defense, quite frankly. And whether that's ball movement, cutting, relentless transition play, to me, basketball is a game of movement and it's a team game, and the players who fit into that aesthetic are what I like to see the most.
Yeah, I think that's a good description, and we'll do the negative part. I think we're going to start with the positive, because the negative stuff, a lot of them are the converse. But you said players that play fast to keep the game moving fast, and the converse will be very present. And one thing,
and I will say there's one other thing too that I think I like guys who just break the game in a way that the other players are just like, oh, I can't deal with this guy. Like I am just getting totally overwhelmed. Like that's I really enjoy offensive rebounders. Like that's guys who you just cannot get this guy out of the paint, or really intimidating shot blockers. I really enjoy that aspect because there is a mano-a-mano aspect to this sport. It's not quite like football in just there's a physical domination and toughness aspect, but there is something to where no, this guy is not only dominating these guys physically but mentally as well. I like to see that from my favorite players. So I will give you the first nomination. We will be allowing current players only, although we can certainly opine on players of the past in the comments. Who are some of your favorite players to watch, Danny?
I'll start with a rookie, and that's Dylan Harper. I think that Dylan Harper, I talked about this when we did the Spurs-Pistons game. It actually came up when we did the other Spurs game as well, that despite not having a jump shot, one of my favorite things about Dylan Harper is that he is aggressive, but he's also unselfish, that he gets into the teeth of the defense, but isn't just always looking to score. He's looking to make the right play. And so he's engaging because he's a terror in transition. He's an athletic guy, but I love it when an athletic player plays unselfishly, especially when they have the tools to do so. And so Harper has been one of my absolute favorites to watch this year.
He's relentless, but he's also unselfish, and he doesn't play like a rookie, and his skill level is ridiculous. Like he's just very calm on the ball. He's incredibly strong, but he's not, hopefully this doesn't change. He plays pretty ethical basketball in terms of foul drawing, but he still gets fouls because he's just so aggressive, but he's actually trying to score. Great left hand, great right hand, and also really gets into guys defensively too. The one thing you might cool about with the aesthetics is his jumper isn't too pretty, either in the results or what you actually see on the floor. Hopefully that's something that will come along in time. But he's someone who I actually, when I first saw him at the Hoop Summit, I was talking to someone who knew all these players really well. And they're like, oh yeah, like the world team's gonna have a huge problem with Dylan Harper. And the first couple of practices, I was like, really? Like this guy, he's like, doesn't look that athletic. He's actually gotten a lot more athletic since then. And like, his jumper's not that great. Like he kind of just looks like, some 6'5" guard. What does he do? And then you saw him get into the real games, and he just, if he didn't have a big man in front of him, it was just going to be a layup every single time. And he just was so relentless. So yeah, I'm kind of sad that you stole him from me. I'll go in a totally different direction, both in terms of the age and the style of play. Stephen Curry is up there for maybe the most aesthetically pleasing player of all time. Not only is it just the ridiculous logo threes, he still does things that absolutely no one else can do. That's always going to be land you really high in these rankings. He doesn't finish at the rim with quite as much panache as he used to, but he still is one of the best ball handlers. And then he also just plays a great team game. He's enabled this system where the Warriors just have a billion assists all the time. He used to be, not as much anymore, but one of the best transition weapons too. And he at least fights pretty hard defensively. He's not getting killed there nearly as much as a lot of other guys his size are. So, I mean, he's still, we are never going to get tired of watching him. It's a treasure to watch him every time we can, even now after 13 years of covering the Golden State Warriors for me personally. So he might even be my number one even now. And I thought even it's not even always about his shooting. I thought one of the games that I liked the most from him was that Game 7 against Houston, where he didn't even have that good of a shooting game last year, but he just willed the Warriors to victory. He's in way better shape than anybody else. He's like running down rebounds in the fourth quarter and just making all these hustle plays, and also one of the best leaders in sports. Relatively limited, like crying to the referees. That's something also that can get you onto the negative team. So I assume I will have no arguments with Steph Curry for a potential top 5 nomination.
Not in the slightest. And the one other thing I'll add and emphasize, you talked about the idea of a player that you'd like to coach. And if I were coaching, I wouldn't just say, oh, emulate the greatest shooter of all time because he's the greatest shooter of all time. What separates Stephen Curry from a lot of his other on-ball brethren is his activity off the ball, the way that you have to defend him all the time, and that he brings that energy. He has that incredible level of stamina. And so when you compare him to so many of the other guys like James Harden, who could be aggressively ball denied and everything else, like Steph Curry makes opposing defenses work every second he's on the floor, whether he's on ball or he's off ball. And yeah, he'll throw a couple of bad behind the back passes, including at big moments. But outside of that, he is remarkably aesthetically pleasing.
Your next nomination.
I have a couple of guys on my list who have not played a second this year, but are still active in the league. And I'll start with Tyrese Haliburton. I think Tyrese Haliburton, his creativity as a passer, his relentlessness as an offensive player, his feel for the big moment, which isn't rigidly in aesthetics, but feels that way to me. Like it's no surprise to me that Tyrese Haliburton has been involved in so many of the things that I think of as indelible moments of this time. He was somebody that I really liked as a draft prospect, but has been so much more since then of these sorts of things. Great skill development, wonderful shooter, great teammate. And yeah, I wish he was better on defense, but outside of that, I mean, he brings it all. Like maybe on the short list of the most aesthetically pleasing offensive players in the league.
Oh, absolutely. And that Pacers team that he led last year, those 4 epic comebacks that he was probably the biggest driver of in the aggregate, that was incredible. I mean, that Pacers team was maybe the most exciting playoff team in my lifetime in terms of just the stuff they're able to do at the end of games, the way they played quick. He enabled that. Obviously, you can see his value by what's happened to them this year. Another one for me that I really have to discuss, I'm interested to discuss with you, is Victor Wembanyama. And at this point in time, I think what he does defensively is fascinating. I think that the strategic challenge that he presents for opposing offenses is fascinating. And then he also is doing stuff on a basketball court on a nightly basis that no one else can do, no one else ever has done. And then you throw in his skill level, his ridiculous shooting at his size. You know, there are some things about me that frustrate him a little bit. And I also, maybe he's new enough now that I don't think this is going to impact me now, but it could at some point, that there could be almost just the game is unfair when he's out there, but not, and you know, certainly he works incredibly hard, right? Like it's not like Shaq was kind of maybe the last guy who was like this, and Shaq did have a pretty good skill level, but you know, let's be honest, most of what he was doing was the result of having maybe unparalleled physical gifts. Wembanyama is a more skilled player than Shaq. He keeps himself in unbelievable shape. He's incredibly competitive, which I don't know that Shaq was. And he's got a really high skill level. But also, you have to acknowledge that a lot of what he's doing is just the result of physical gifts that just no one else has. And there's something different about being super tall in a way that maybe someone like LeBron James, it didn't impact me the same way, because there were still like bigger guys out there than him, right? So what's your feeling on Wemby? I mean, I'm always really excited to watch him at this point in time, but just from a pure aesthetic standpoint, what do you think?
I'm not always entranced by his offense aesthetically. I mean, especially with some of the shots that he takes, like we're still working through that. He's still a work in progress on that end, but defensively, he is. I mean, Victor Wembanyama, and one of my favorite things in the league. I like it more when a player is surprising on defense. Like you get those, like I remember those early Miles Turner surprise blocks and things like that. Victor Wembanyama isn't surprising anyone. Like he's not doing that, but he is a puzzle that I like watching, especially great teams try to unlock. And so it's a different version of aesthetically pleasing. Like we usually think of it more in terms of the player in and of himself, but I like watching other teams and other players face Victor Wembanyama more than any other player in the league. And I mean,
yeah,
we talked about the Pistons and Cade Cunningham. Just, you know, Cade almost got blocked by Wembanyama as many times as he made baskets. It was 5-4 in that game against the Pistons, and then the ridiculous on-off for Wemby in the eventual win over the Toronto Raptors. So I think that it's like kind of like watching maybe more like a thriller where you're like on the edge of it. You're not, it's not like one of those fun action movie thrill ride type things, but I do really enjoy watching him. And I think that Wembanyama, you and I both love, part of the reason I think you and I like bonded about watching basketball is that we both really appreciate defense. And Victor Wembanyama is a different kind of defender, but one I truly love watching.
Yeah, and I think it says something that probably all of the playoff series that I most want to see in these playoffs would involve him potentially. And also, you know, who knows how long he has to play. I mean, he's done a great job of keeping himself in shape, obviously, but appreciate him while he's here, because the history has shown that guys like that aren't able to maintain. Maybe Kareem would be the only guy. Your next nomination?
I think this is more of a lifetime achievement than what he is right now, but I think we should mention LeBron James. I mean, LeBron's, some of his indelible highlights, his scoring, but also his unselfishness with his physical gifts has always been something I appreciated. And he's not the most consistent possession by possession defender anymore. So this is more like career LeBron necessarily than like what he has been for the Lakers this year, but he still has some of those purely electric moments. And as somebody who is almost exactly the same age as LeBron James, there is that level of fulfillment seeing somebody who is as old as I am, in fact, a slightly older, do some things on the basketball court, which I could of course never do. There is something about that, but I don't know if current LeBron would fully make the list. But you know, if we had done this 10 years ago when we started, he absolutely would have.
Yeah, I'm not really like very excited to tune in and watch LeBron right now, to be honest. Maybe in the playoffs I am, but when he really can ramp it up, and like, you know, I thought his performance in Game 4 last year against the Timberwolves was incredibly inspiring. The defensive level he was able to get to, and certainly that Game 4 when he got eliminated, but was awesome in 2023 against the Nuggets with their backs against the wall. They ended up getting swept, but it was still a pretty awesome performance. But like there's just kind of like a cynicism to LeBron James at this point. And, whether the people have kind of pointed to him as the reason that people stopped trying the All-Star game, I don't think that's really necessarily fair to him, but certainly, he's not someone who like takes that serious. Like he's just is not like an ultra competitive guy that you feel like is bringing it. He kind of doesn't really seem to care that much about the fans either, which, I understand it's a business. Like he's been around for a long time. But just not someone who I think has like that authentic of a connection necessarily. And so, yeah, for me, the LeBron Lakers experience just haven't really been as into that. Nikola Jokic obviously is another one.
Yeah.
Maybe the best passer of any size ever. Certainly the best passing center. Another guy who just does a million things that no one else can do. He's an incredible shooter and scorer and hits all these ridiculous soundboard shuffle fadeaways. And also, I like him because he's such an intellectual challenge for the other team. There is really no scouting. Maybe say, all right, try to force him right shoulder a little bit, but that's about all you can do. And he just has myriad ways to attack, whether it's pick and roll, pick and pop, posting up, running a pick and roll, as a passer, as a scorer, as an offensive rebounder. They're just, to me, he's maybe the most complete offensive player ever. And I just love watching him and then watching how defenses try to deal with him. Maybe getting a little floppy lately.
Yeah.
Some of the
the foul baiting and the defense are real concerns for Jokic, but his offensive game is incredible. And as I've brought up with a few guys, when you are as good a scorer as Nikola Jokic is, to be as great a passer as he is just an absolute joy, because you see a lot of those guys, he can get sucked into their own world, try to do things too much. And Jokic just doesn't. He's trying to find his teammates. He's elevating these groups with guys that are defense first or maybe even defense only players into being the best offensive versions of themselves. He makes his teams, whether they have Jamal Murray or not, watchable and fun on offense and usually really, really good. So Jokic, he's the first guy I listed when I kind of went through this and was thinking about it in my head, and he will definitely be high on my list. But it really being only on one end and like he's, limited.
Yeah,
and
I don't like watching him on defense. I will say that. I mean, he's got good hands, but I think he actually gets away with a lot of fouls just by being kind of ground bound and like moving his body into guys as they're in the air and not getting called for fouls. He's just not really a very good rim protector that doesn't always play hard on the defensive end either. Like he's very smart. He's a good communicator. But I do agree. I mean, all right. Do you love watching Steph Curry on defense? Like, no, probably not. But so I mean, he still is going to be up there for me. But I did want to point these things out. Like, when this like bending over when someone is like trying to front him in the post as he's moving to the high post and like looking like he just got shot in the stomach with a shotgun whenever someone makes any contact with him moving off the ball. Like, I don't really care for that type of stuff that much. And he, 3-4 years ago, he wasn't really doing that stuff as much. He's kind of moved into that role a little bit more now. So yeah, I probably was a little bit higher than him a couple of years ago, but still, I mean, he's absolutely incredible.
We can go to a very different kind of center, someone that I think you were alluding to, and I think we both have on our list, is Steven Adams. And I love watching other people deal with Steven Adams. I mean, it helps that I also enjoy him quite a bit as a person, interviews and all that, but the energy he plays with, the ridiculousness of his offensive rebounding. And I mean, I've grown to appreciate the other parts of his game too. I mean, you think about the value in his absence in Memphis with the screening for John Morant, and like he makes his team more watchable in ways that can sometimes be hard to tell at first, but really makes a difference. And I truly love watching Steven Adams, and I'm hopeful that we can see him back at something close to full force next year.
Yeah, slight negatives for the free throw shooting. Mitchell Robinson, another guy who would be on my list in the same way for that. Another guy kind of that same ilk. It doesn't do as much offensive rebounding anymore as Isaiah Stewart, who I just can't really jump, but yet somehow is one of the best rim protectors in the league because he just understands angles. And, he's really tough. He's always going to play hard. You never have any worries about his level of passion. It crosses the line every once in a while, but I do think as just a pure fan, you like to see that level of caring from guys. Like 7-game suspension is a little bit too much. This is my next big one here, though. I would say this is someone that not a lot of people are going to agree with. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is absolutely in my top 5. And I know the free throw merchant chants have really dogged him. And yeah, it's kind of annoying when he beats the guy and then just tries to time up the reach in on a floating shot 17 feet from the basket that isn't a real shot to try to get to the free throw line. I don't really care for that. Everyone does that at this point in time who's any kind of a quick guard. And also part of that is that it's really hard to get a foul if you're not doing that. But so I will admit that part of his game does bother me. But and also I'd say like his lack of physicality on defense is a little bit annoying too. But he's like an incredible guard defender, one of the best shot blocking and steals guards that we've ever seen. And then he's got the best handle in the NBA. He never turns it over. And he just can continue to stay on the ball and beat guys. His finishing package is awesome. And he gets better every year. Like he's added this step back 3 over the last couple of years. I mean, he's just one of the best guards ever. I mean, if you compare him to, spoiler alert, James Harden, he's way better than Harden was at his apex in Houston, putting up pretty similar numbers. And yet, he'll dominate the ball some, but he's at least always attacking. He's not just like holding the ball, dribbling in place for 10 or 15 seconds. Like he'll attack in transition. He will move the ball. He's a great teammate. And so I think while there is a certain aspect of foul drawing to his game, and basically anyone who drives to the basket is probably going to be doing some of that stuff at this point in time, except maybe John Morant. So it's kind of just comes with the territory for someone who's going to drive a lot, and driving to the basket is really fun, right? Like the fact that I think Avdija is ahead of him now, but he basically has led the NBA in drives for the last 4 years before this. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's the most, if you play pickup basketball, it's like the most fun thing to do is like drive to the basket, drive by your man. What's your feeling on Shai from an aesthetic standpoint?
So I have him on the more pleasing side, but I don't think he'll make my top 5. You brought up the foul drawing. I want to throw in the off-arm nonsense. And yes,
thank you. Yeah.
He's playing within the rules that exist. However, it is not aesthetically pleasing. I think that it should be more punished. And so I'm not going to give him a full ding for exploiting the rules that exist to his benefit, but that doesn't make me like it. That doesn't make it aesthetically pleasing. And that's part of the beauty of the subjectivity here, is that the less ethical parts of it in terms of the watchability of basketball, like I'm not blaming Shai for doing what he's doing, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. And I will give Shai Gilgeous-Alexander more bonus points than a lot of guys for being a great offensive player who tries on defense. Like that is, that's a threshold that I think is really important in this. And so, there are a lot of guys who would get a steep demerit. Like we've talked about, definitely like Jokic, like definitely non-defense. Like, yes, there are some things that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could do better, but especially relative to his role and his size, he does more and is an important part of why his team does so well in that end. Because when your star buys in, when your star behaves as actively as he does, well, then that can work really well. And so I think that, I have Shai on the positive side, but because of the off arm, because of the foul drawing, I'm not going to have him in my top 5. I think that that's an appropriate place for him. One that I think a lot of people would have on their list, and I have him too, I'm not sure if he'll end up being top 5 for me, is Kyrie Irving. Like Irving's handle is just electric, and he's not, this isn't prime Kyrie Irving. He's at the later stages of his career, even before he got hurt, but he is a really fun guy to watch on offense. And he has these moments. He at times has been this unbelievable isolation scorer as well. So like Kyrie Irving is an interesting melding of doing the casual stuff well, but also having this ridiculous skill level and overall game that works really well at high level basketball too.
Yeah, I would say for me, I've never been quite up there with him. I always thought his handle is overrated because he never really was like that great of a driver. He would hold the ball a lot too. Brooklyn and then in Dallas, the way he's evolved his game to play more off the ball, be really good in transition, attack quickly. I've really liked that. And, he still does have some of this amazing finishing high off the glass. That's really impressive. He's also one of the best shooters of all time as well. Yeah, for him, I just hasn't quite gotten there for me. For a lot of his career, his effort on defense pretty much lagged as well. If you could combine the way that he plays now with how dynamic he was attacking the basket when he was younger, then he probably would be there for me. But I mean, certainly is someone I enjoy watching, but not quite at that same level as far as I'm concerned. Is there anyone else that's in consideration for you as far as like a top five?
Well, so what's interesting to me is you and I both love dunks, and we don't really have any great dunkers that we've talked about so far. I think
Yeah.
part of the reason for that is that those players have deficiencies in other parts of their game right now. That hasn't always been true.
There aren't actually like that many awesome dunkers right now.
True. I mean, we see that with the
But
dunk
I think
contest that neither of us
yeah.
really watches. Right now,
I mean, Anthony Edwards could be a great dunker, but he just doesn't dunk that much.
and like I appreciate Ant, but a lot of the rest of his game isn't always Anthony Edwards. The best moments are up there with absolutely anybody, but like the possession by possession stuff isn't quite there. I don't know that he's consideration for top five, but especially because he used to be a highlight dunker. I really appreciate Aaron Gordon now in a way, in part because his game has grown. He's become this consistent shooter, good cutter, active team defender. Like I don't know that he's top five for me, but I definitely wanted to mention him in this conversation.
Yeah, that's a good one, I think. Yeah, I guess Giannis is someone we haven't really talked about yet, and he obviously is a great dunker even still. Not quite as ridiculous as he used to be, at least from like an aesthetic standpoint. Part of it to me is just that he's been mired on this Bucks team, and I'll try to keep the all of the annoying drama around him for the last year out of it.
Oh, just the last year?
I would say most of the like there wasn't he wasn't like
I guess
having meetings
it wasn't
about possibly getting traded.
Yeah,
It was
it
more
wasn't
our
his fault before that.
speculation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more our speculation in the past. Now it's been him. The free throw thing, how long he takes to shoot the free throws. At least he's not shooting jumpers anymore, which is nice because that always really killed me about his game. But he's not as good defensively as he used to be. I used to really like to watch him on defense, and just that he was playing so hard all the time, and I don't get that from him as much. He's getting older, which is not a surprise. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's just the team that's around him, but I can't say that he's probably not in my top five. Maybe there was a point at which he was, but again, this is, I would certainly understand someone having him in the top five, but he's just not there for me.
I mean, the basic for me is that I didn't enjoy really watching Bucks games with him involved in them this year. I mean, I've enjoyed the games without him less, but that is kind of a key thing where it's like, oh, am I looking forward to it? I mean, that was even true. Like there were these moments in the Giannis Damian Lillard experiment where I wasn't enjoying watching the Bucks as much as I wanted to, and that Giannis, part of this is that the way he wants to play is not as engaging as some of the other stuff he could theoretically do. And I think that's a difference with somebody like Zion Williamson, where I think the way that Zion wants to play is pretty aesthetically pleasing. It's just he doesn't do it all the time. And so I don't have either of those guys in my top five, but because Zion, in part because he's just not that guy consistently enough. He has those moments. Also, Zion is generally bad on defense, and I always say, that's a demerit for me as well. So, but I wanted to mention Zion because another guy who in his best moments probably wasn't that list. I want to throw one other guy out there, somebody that I broke down recently in a 15 and 60. In terms of the off-ball stylings of like a kind of like an off-ball shooter, I think I enjoy Trey Murphy's game the best. There are a lot of these guys that I appreciate, but because Trey Murphy and James Borrego's offense is doing a lot more cutting, which is something else that I really enjoy. Trey's, when he's on the ball, I talked about it a lot. We did that 1560. The film is pretty terrible. I don't like it. But the rest of his offensive game, I really do enjoy.
Yeah, I would say for an off-ball mover, other than Seth, Markkanen would probably be the guy for me at this point in time. Because, I like that component of the game. And just the cat and mouse game, top-siding, going backdoor, setting up screens, going around screens. You curl, you flare. I think there's like a technical aspect to that just not that many guys are like good enough to do that, and especially Markkanen at 7 feet. He also can drive and dunk. I probably was a little bit higher on him when he was just absolutely dunking guys into oblivion in the 23 season. He doesn't do that as much anymore, but he still has been very effective. Obviously, on the Jazz, he plays 30 games a year at a real pace. And John Morant still would have been close to number one on this list in past years. Hopefully he can get back to that at some point in time. Same thing with Darius Garland, because he's really high skill level, shoot, dribble, and pass, but he also plays fast and makes quick decisions and moves the ball quickly. So I like that relative to maybe some of these other small guards. Wouldn't be my top five, though. There's also this subcategory of guys who are just young players that I really enjoy watching. I tune in to see them and see some of the stuff that they can do, even if they're probably never going to be that great and they'll probably fall off this list. Like one of those guys was Shaedon Sharpe, where for a while he was just must-see TV for me, just because he was going to have some ridiculous dunks. I was very high on him. I wanted it. Like his jumper looks exceedingly pure. He's one of like the smoothest guys you're going to see. But obviously, there's a frustration aspect there. He wouldn't be in my top five, but he was one of those guys I tuned in on. Jeremiah Fears is another one of those who I just love the way that he dribbles the ball. Like he's got that magic with the ball in his hands, but he's also has like 51% true shooting. So, he's kind of getting some entitlement minutes right now. Any guy, and then Reed Shepherd would probably be the other one. He's the most effective of all these guys. He's someone that I, again, was very high on in the draft. He's starting to make shots now. I think his off the dribble game is getting better and better. Also makes some plays defensively, although his lack of defense is supposedly a big storyline. So, but he's someone that whenever he comes in the game, my eyes perk up. I'm like, yeah, I want to see what Reed's going to do right now. Hopefully they give him the ball and let him take a couple of shots this time.
That's a very good list. I'm going to throw another group out there. I call them the defense only guys. So they can't make the top five, but guys that I truly love watching play defense. Amen Thompson, Rudy Gobert, and then a young guy who hasn't gotten as much of a chance, Carter Bryant. Like I enjoy watching them when they're on the floor. They're very ambitious. They're trying stuff, but each one of them has some real offensive foibles. And at best, the best of those three offensively is extremely frustrating. So they can't make the top five, but they're guys, I love, defense can be really fun to watch too.
Yeah, Caruso is probably the highest of those defense-only guys to me. His jump shot for him isn't great, but he can finish at the rim. He'll get out in transition. He drives. He makes passes. He can set screens. So he's an intelligent player on offense. And then defensively, you're just one of the smartest guys. The way his great hands, the way he shows up plays. Like the stuff that I love to see are like the guys who just make amazing help reads, surprise ball handlers, get steals, get interceptions. Those are the guys I like to watch the most, other than obviously the great rim protectors as well.
We have to mention Draymond Green for that as well, even though he's not at the peak of his powers. He's another guy who you watch teams try to figure him out and they just fail. A lot of teams fail over and over again. And I truly, I don't appreciate watching him in person as much as Stephen Curry, but it's lucky to have those two.
Yeah, there's a time he might have been in my top five, but he's just so bad on offense now. And he still is incredible with positioning defensively, and he'll ramp it up every once in a while with the effort. And he's still amazingly quick laterally for his age, but he doesn't make those same spectacular plays that he used to nearly as often. Other guy I could throw in there that I really like, who might even be close to my top five, would be Derek White. The way he shoots the ball coming off of screens, he just has such a quick release. I thought one of the things that was so interesting, we did 2 of their games recently for the NBA strategy stream, and he had the hardest made shot per the AWS tracking stats in each of those games, because he just catches the ball right out of his chest, immediately goes up with it. The defender is right there, but just Derek White knows that the guy can't get off the ground fast enough to challenge it. So I like the way that he plays as a shooter. He's made himself into one of the best shooters in the league. Then he also can handle the ball. And then defensively, some of his reads, how good he is with his hands. He doesn't even really jump that high anymore now, but he still is one of the best shot blocking guards of all time, even now. So I think he really adds something. He's got that Spurs DNA as far as making quick decisions, moving the ball, that I like as well. But he also has this just invertebrate bomber to him at this point. Playing in Joe Mazzulla's system, I think, has been awesome. Joe gives a lot of confidence to his guys in that regard. So Derek White would certainly be up there. He's my favorite Celtic to watch by far.
I'd agree with that. I mean, especially if we're talking current vintage, I think that I enjoy watching him more than Brown or Tatum, but he's not going to be in my top five. I don't think there are a lot of other guys I enjoy watching, but I think we've gone through all the ones that are in series.
Yeah. Well, 2 others I wanted to mention that I think people might talk about. Kevin Durant is one of them. KD has never been like a quick move the ball guy. He kind of chafed at that in Golden State after initially craving it and then being like, I'm not really getting enough isolations here. And certainly there have been moments in his career, like his valiant games 5 and 7 in that Bucks series for the Nets in 21 are like two of the greatest watches, most compelling games I've ever seen anyone play. But his effort's pretty inconsistent. His body language is kind of inconsistent, and he's an incredible shot maker. He's one of the smoothest scorers ever. But he's not getting like amazing separation, like not a great passer anymore. So he's not someone that I'm like, oh, I got to tune in to watch him at this point in time. Maybe more in the playoffs when he was at his peak. That would have been the case. And then Anthony Edwards too, maybe more of a playoff watch because his effort's kind of inconsistent and taking a lot of off the dribble jumpers, and he's amazing at that at this point in time. But that's not like as exciting to me. He's not like the smoothest mover necessarily. Like his handle's not that great. He's not a great passer. He just is not someone who would be at the top for me because I don't think he's really like the smartest basketball player, at least not yet in his career. So those are guys that I really like the most, is like guys whose brains are as good as their skill level. All right, you ready for yeah, good.
Oh, the only thing I'll mention is that he won't make my bottom 5. I actually have KD on the other side just because I think watching I appreciate what Kevin Durant does, but I generally find that watching him is less fun than thinking about him. And he's been such a fascinating player for the entirety of our Dunc'd On tenure. But I don't enjoy watching KD play offense as much as some of these other guys. So, and other than his transition passing being an adventure, other than that, it's just like, I don't know, it's just not always my cup of tea. As even though he's better at that stuff than a lot of the names you're going to hear me throw out, who are kind of like worse versions of KD that are pretty prominent on my least pleasing list.
A couple other guys I wanted to shout out. Concanipple
sure.
is I think someone who's going to be higher on this list. Again, just the way that they're moving the ball in Charlotte, and the fact that his offensive game is already so filled out. Also, just the ball looks awesome when it goes through the net off that guy's hand. Like it's just like there's something about a perfect swish that's just so cathartic.
Jamal Murray. I think Jamal Murray's really smooth game. He can have these incandescent moments. And like, I like watching, we had some comments about Donovan Mitchell. I like watching Jamal Murray more than Donovan Mitchell. I think it's sometimes Donovan Mitchell, he can kind of get into a rut a little bit, but his most watchable games are really fun. But just the day to day of him on the Cavs and on the Jazz, I thought that there were times that's just not as fun.
Yeah, Murray is up there for me too. Like he at least is a pretty ethical player, which I like. Like not a lot of foul drawing stuff from him. Mitchell to me, like he'll make some spectacular plays, and he's a great shot maker. Not sure what it is. I think like if you watch that series against Indiana last year, like everything seemed very labored for him. He's still as great a player as he is. He's kind of like a made player rather than a natural player, which I respect to be sure, but there's not quite the same level of smoothness as you would see from some of these other great guards, and he started off as sort of a defensive player and deserves a ton of credit for the skill level he's built himself up to. But it's also still you still there's a little bit of like a hitting buttons on the controller aspect to him. Let's see if we get so while we're on the positive side, let's see here. Kate Cunningham, David Funkhauser.
I like Cade Cunningham, but especially like there's this section of guys that are like good offensive players, but not necessarily efficient in individual offense. Like I mean, Cade's much more watchable than Alper and Şengün, but where it's like you get into those sorts of little limited trouble. So I like Cade. I think that for me, Cade is higher in all NBA than in watchability, but I respect the hell out of what he's doing.
Yeah, I wonder if he were just in a different system on a different team, whether I would like him more, because he's just dominating the ball too much, and he just has to kind of bash his head against a brick wall a lot of times to get his points and his assists, and so if he were playing off the ball more with more spacing, perhaps I might feel a little bit differently about it. Let's see who else is. Tyson Brody says Nash and Stoudemire. Historically, that I've such a lucky basketball life to have lived in Chicago during the 90s, Arizona during the 2000s, and then in the Bay for this last 18 years. Let's see here. Luke Cornett and Dylan Cardwell. Now that's well, hopefully this person is a real Dunc'd On fan, because yeah, beef stew blocks. Yeah, we talked about that. Peyton Pritchard is a great watch or a horrible watch, depending on if he has it going that night or not. He does really dribble the ball a lot these days, which I kind of, and he never like beats his man enough to force a double team and then like kick it out. He's not really a very good passer. So yeah, he's not up there for me necessarily. This one says best watch Harden. That's a joke, right? Worst watch Lou Dort. That could
more on the second one of those later. Actually, more on both of them later. Oh, and 97 MDM mentioned Malik Monk. I had Malik Monk on deeper on my list as well. Him and Keontae George were two that I had on my list but didn't mention.
All right, well, let's get to what people are really trying to see here. The least aesthetic players.
Well, do we want to do a top NBA 5 before we transition?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
I have my top 4 pretty locked in. My 5th one is kind of floating a little bit. There are a lot of different players that I think are merit consideration, but especially because he's a change of pace. I think I'm going to go Steven Adams 5, Dylan Harper 4, Tyrese Haliburton 3, Jokic 2, Steph Curry 1.
Yeah, I think my top 5 of established players would be Victor, Steph Curry, Jokic, Shea, and Haliburton. But Dylan Harper, as of right now, I just really get so excited whenever Dylan Harper comes into the game. And again, just like what I was talking about with Reed Shepard, I'm like, give him the ball. I want to see him do something. Yeah, so I've got that kind of energy with him right now. I don't know that it'll continue for the rest of the career, but since Tyrese is out right now, I will replace him with Dylan Harper. So I still think Steph has got to be number 1, particularly because he only has so little time left. And this is basically my power rankings of like, all right, I have no obligations on a night. This guy is playing. Who do I want to watch? Steph is still probably number 1 for me. I think Victor is probably number 2 at this point. Dylan Harper would probably be number 3. I guess I'm watching a lot of Spurs games. Jokic 4, and then Shea would probably be 5 for me. Okay, now it's time for what everyone is here for. And again, this is purely our own aesthetics of I'm just a fan. I don't have to do any research. I don't care who wins or loses. I just want to have my eyes drink in this player, or avert in the case of certain of these guys. So this is just, who do we not really like watching that much? And we gave our criteria at the top. You can assume that the opposite of those criteria is what are going to play in heavily here.
And it's important to note that, and I'm going to start with one to demonstrate this, that these are not necessarily players that I think lower on or players that I don't like. It's just that I don't enjoy watching them. And I think that I'll start that with Denny Avdija. And I appreciate what Denny Avdija has done with his skill, but it is him driving into a brick wall, trying to get a foul. And the passing helps a little bit. But generally speaking, when I appreciate what he has done. I picked Denny Avdija for All-NBA, but I do not enjoy watching his aggressive drives as much as I enjoy somebody like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, well, you and Luke Cornett, I suppose. But yeah, I think Denny, to me, number 1, he's just new enough that I'm still learning stuff. I'm still finding stuff interesting. And I do think he's a really good passer on those drives. And yeah, I think he's throwing himself into stuff, getting a whistle on occasion, to be sure. But also, like, he moves pretty well off the ball when he's denied, and he'll make passes to the outside. He also can at least play off the ball and make some shots. And he's pretty athletic. I also like his slow step game. That skill level is pretty interesting to me as well. He's doing some stuff there where he's just coming to almost a dead stop on some of these moves, which you're not seeing a lot of guys doing. I think more people are going to start doing that. So yeah, he would not be on my list. And obviously, James Harden has to be up there as well. Now, weirdly, in Cleveland, he hasn't been foul baiting nearly as much, and he definitely is not anywhere close to the worst foul baiter. But one of the biggest foul baiting moves that's out there is named after him, which is the Harden that picked the ball up early, which is almost always ends up being a travel too, but they never call it. Pick the ball up to the 3-point line, extend your arms, hunt with your forearms for the other guy's forearm to try to get a foul call, and then go ahead and shoot the ball on a drive. I hate that. And just, he's going to hold the ball a lot. He's not going to push it. He's not going to, like, his handle is really good, but he can't really go right to finish at all. Like, he is not as bad at this as he was in his Houston days when he just became a complete caricature of himself, where it was either drive left or step back right and then hope to fall down and draw a foul on his step back three. So, but he also, like, he can't really pass with his right hand. And like, it's more, when I watch him, it's like, all right, I know what he's going to do, and it's really hard to stop, but there's only so many things that he's doing. Like, at least now he'll take a catch and shoot three. Like, he added a floater, so that's a little bit better. Obviously he's not really doing much on defense. But it's really probably more than anything, it's just the holding the ball and the slowness. And there's still plenty of foul drawing there as well, though, as I noted, he's not nearly as bad as a lot of these guys at this point in time.
The other thing that works heavily against James Harden is that he's a horrendous defender. And Harden is a horrendous defender in ways that are, at least when he was younger, correctable. Like, he could have been, yes, he had a big offensive workload, but he could have been better than he was. He's not.
I enjoyed watching him in OKC and maybe even that first Houston year.
Yeah, and unlike, it's not like he's Trae Young, where he's just like a real, or like, if we want to go even more extreme, like Rob Dillingham, where he's just a teeny guy out there, can't really do anything. You're just gonna have to do it. Like James Harden, stout, he could do these other things, but lack of attentiveness, and then also I brought this up with Steph Curry in the other way, that he could be so easily ball denied. And so the idea is that, like, watching Harden, like, getting to see him work, and so yeah, I mean, Harden will be, I would expect that he'll be in my top 5. I can bring up kind of a genre of player, because I mean, and people who listen to the pod won't be surprised at this, which is basically guys who their entire MO is working to tough mid-rangers. And so I think Brandon Ingram's probably the head of that list, though Jabari Smith Jr. is pretty hard on his tail. Jabari Smith Jr. takes way more twos than he should. And so, and there are a bunch of other guys, like I could, I don't know that I want to necessarily run through all of these in one specific mention, but there is this whole type of guy who, it's like, they're not doing the more fun stuff. Often they're a little bit of ball stoppers. Ingram is a better passer now than he was, but especially when some of those guys are also limited defensive players, it's just a lot to take in, or to ideally not take in aesthetically.
Yeah, when you're just like, is he really, he's not even really beating his man. And then you're like, you think that the shot quality is some of the worst in the league, but he also is not hitting it the way like a KD or a Shea is going to. So yeah, Ingram's got to be up there for me as well. Also a very inattentive defender, doesn't nearly live up to his physical potential as a defender, having this massive wingspan at 7'3" that he doesn't do as much with. I think, another one of these guys where, because I think that's a big part of it, is just like, you're not really like actually beating your guy. You're just kind of bludgeoning your way to a spot. And like KD doesn't fall in that category to me, because he'll at least try to get separation, and then he's just going to get to a spot and rise up. And, also he's just like so much better at that game than anyone else has ever been. And he'll take threes and stuff too. Like, he used to be a great driver. Karl Anthony Towns. And it's funny because a lot of these guys, you'll note that I used to be pretty high on their aesthetics. I would say Karl Anthony Towns, back in his Minnesota days, before Anthony Edwards got there, when he was focusing more on shooting threes and he posted up more, which he doesn't really do that much now. There's thought that he could be a really good passer. Obviously, defensively, he's really struggled. But now, like, his drive game, it's just so much of just this bludgeoning. He's the league leader in offensive fouls, which really sucks. Like, he's just not beating his guy. That's one of the biggest things. It's like, you're not actually beating the guy, but you're someone who's been given the ball a lot. You get a lot of respect for the referees. Like, you're going to get a certain number of calls. The game's going to slow down. Also, just not someone who plays particularly hard. Not particularly athletic anymore. So Towns would have to be up there for me. And sadly, so is Jalen Brunson. I mean, the Knicks, while I do really enjoy Mr. Robinson. I do really enjoy Josh Hart and how hard he plays. OG Anunoby's off-ball defense is really exciting. Miles McBride is also another guy I like, but Brunson and Towns are just really tough watches. It's pretty remarkable to me that Jalen Brunson doesn't have more national profile, given that he's like this incredible underdog story, plays for the team in the biggest market. And I think that fans just don't respond to his game. And I would say he is probably the biggest flopper that's out there right now. Not only flopper, but also just on the highest percentage of his moves. Joel Embiid would probably be the other guy in this category. We'll get to him.
Oh yeah.
But on the highest percentage of his moves, he's doing some kind of a movement to try to draw a foul. And that's so much of what, and it's annoying because when he doesn't do that, he still can be really effective. And, you know, he also is doing a lot of flopping on the defensive end, but he's not a good defender overall either. It's really because, like, he's a great finisher. Like, I really enjoyed watching him more in Dallas, but then he's going to pound the ball a lot too. You know, he could be a really good shooter if he played off the ball more. So they're trying to do more for him. And so that's part of what's so frustrating is there's 75% of a guy here that I would love to watch. It's just 25% of his game is just trying to draw something.
And I think there's a natural transition from Jalen Brunson to his former teammate, Luka Doncic, who I think has a lot of those same flaws as well. But Luka, the thing that he's a better passer and he has these, and he can be an incredible scorer at moments in time. But the other thing that Luka brings to the least aesthetically pleasing game is how much he complains to the officials and how deactivated.
His crying is out of control. It's so bad.
It's ridiculously irritating. It makes him a worse player. It makes him a worse, like, defensively. It makes him a worse watch. And I think there's a part of it. I mean, I still believe in Luka. You know, John and I will do top 10 players closer to the end of the year. Like, he'll still figure prominently, but I think there's some of that can, especially with the wrong coach, can infect the team a little bit. And Luka doesn't push it in transition. We talked about this a little bit on a recent pod and then also on the warm-up earlier in the day on Thursday about how one of the things that this Lakers team, why they're not this incredible offense team, is that they don't get enough in transition. And the biggest reason why they don't is that Luka doesn't provide that. And like we thought maybe that would be the case with Cade. Thank goodness Cade has defied that and he's become this transition force. But like Luka, it's hard, and I appreciate his skill. There are a lot of very good players, great players on this list, but I think Luka, to me, he's more egregious to me than Jalen Brunson is, in part because Luka's tools are better. And so like Luka doesn't have to, but he still does a lot of this stuff and then brings the other extraneous nonsense.
Yeah, and it really, I think, has gotten a lot worse with the Lakers than it was in Dallas. And in Dallas, you know, he was, I mean, maybe there's just something about going to the Lakers where there's this mercenary aspect. That's through no fault of his own. He didn't want to be traded in theory. But he hasn't had as many spectacular highlights. He's not as athletic as he used to be. I haven't seen as many awesome passes from him now. That's maybe an absence of play finishers on the team, perhaps. But yeah, he's not shown up as much in the nightly highlights, I would say. The step back looks really awesome, but it's also like he takes a lot of bad ones. The fact that he seems to get worse as the game goes on as well, that he just comes out firing in every first quarter and then that kind of wanes throughout the game. And yeah, just the fact that he's basically a power forward defensively, but it's so hard to build around him on defense too. And it sucks because I loved watching Luka Doncic. There's a time at which he probably would have been top 5 on this list on the good side to me. And that's part of, again, like, you have this potential to be so awesome. And yet, like, so much of it is just crying and complaining. And there's just no self-awareness to it whatsoever, right? Like last night's game, Luka is crying every single possession down the stretch. And then he just absolutely bludgeons Wendell Carter Jr. with no call at all on the winning basket for the Magic. It should have been an and one. But Luka, I'm sure, has no idea that, like, oh yeah, I actually got away with one there. Like, that should go into the ledger of all the times that I think I got fouled. Like, he's leading the NBA basically in fouls, and he still cries all the time. It's like, you can only get fouled so many times in a game. Like, you just need to understand that that's going to be the case. And if you watch him too, watch the percentage of times, if you could watch it, you watch it on the YouTube, I'll show you guys, that he picks the ball up with his arms like fully extended like this, just like looking, even on just, out in the perimeter, just doing nothing. They're just like looking to go through somebody's arm. Like every time he picks the ball up, it seems like he's looking to do that. And so, yeah, it's really a shame because he makes so many spectacular plays, but and hopefully there'll be a time that he gets off of this list.
They say that absence makes the heart grow fonder, and somebody that kind of goes the opposite way, just because I see him a lot. Just because we see so much of the Warriors, there may not be a player who gets my ire up more frequently than Brandon Podziemski, because we see him more often.
You're not the only one, I don't think.
And so Podziemski, he's not nearly as egregious as some of the guys on this list, but I had to mention, he comes up more on the pod just because we see him, but like his half-court decisional inertia is just ridiculous in person, where you just see him and it's just like holds it, drives, makes a terrible decision, all this sort of stuff. And like there are players who are deliberate and have earned that being deliberate because they can do all this other stuff. But Podziemski, like, he's not going to make my top 5 because that would be too petty. But in many ways, in my heart, he is.
Yeah, that would be too petty. And also, he still is like a good defender. Now, he takes a bunch of charges, which I don't love, but and he also rebounds. I like rebounders. So yeah, he wouldn't be there for me. He also has kind of been overstretched in some of these roles as a creator. Lou Dort.
Oh, yeah.
The commenter mentioned him earlier, and I really wish that I could like him. Like, I do like guys who play really hard, but I'm sorry. The brick shithouse that falls down when the big bag wolf walks within 50 feet of him, I can't deal with that. It's just like the amount of flopping that he'll engage in after he's being so incredibly physical. Like, he's taken up that mantle now from Marcus Smart, but he is even more jacked and even more physical, and all he's being asked to do on this team is get over screens, and then he'll just flop at a moment's notice. But yet, the screener 75% of the time has to be ready to firm up because Jort's going to run through you like a train, and then he's just going to completely derail 25% of the time. And I just don't, especially given how incredibly physical OKC is on defense. Like, I do think some of the crying about their fouling is overblown because, hey, guess what? If it's really about the rest, then everyone would be doing it and everyone would be forcing 18% turnovers by the other team, and they're not. But if you're going to be that physical, it really annoys me when the refs bail him out.
I want to give Lou Dort credit that his offensive game has become more watchable in recent years. There was a version
that part's
of
actually gotten a lot better. Yeah,
where Lou Dort was taking all of these terrible twos and he was missing all of them, and it was even worse. But the improvement in his watchability on offense just moves him. He's probably still going to be in my bottom 5. It just puts him in a slightly better place in that bottom 5 than where he would have been before, because not only is it the light as a feather, stiff as a board stuff, but it's also like I don't like calling anyone dirty, but there are at least dirty adjacent things with Lou Dort that make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so like that is an element of this too. Like that you dread watching him a little bit. Like, he's not the biggest defender, but a lot of the other guys who would be aren't on these lists kind of for various reasons. They're probably not prominent enough is that one. But yeah, Lou Dort features for me. Another guy and that I'm happy that he'll have the time to change this. And I think that it's like, we'll see where it goes, but Paolo Banchero, and I don't know if it's that, that he's become kind of a more extreme version. He's grown a little as a passer, but I brought up this idea back when we watched the film of him at Duke, where it was the snapshot, and like with Brandon Ingram, the snapshot isn't as good, but so like the idea is like how he gets into position, but taking the shots. When with Banchero, it's the frustration that he could be a more watchable version. He's also not like this. He is a foul drawer, but he's not like kind of an engaging one. Like I don't know that he'll be in my 5, but he definitely is one of my more frustrating watches and makes his team less fun to watch too.
His jump shot form is also just atrocious aesthetically. Like, he shoots it on the way down, his elbows flying way out. Like, you're surprised when it goes in. And yeah, especially this year coming back where he hasn't been in the best shape either. Like, that's another thing where I feel like if a guy is like not maximizing what he could be, that really bothers me. And then it's just a lot of just plowing into guys, trying to draw the foul. He's not as bad as some because he's at least big and physical, and like some of the foul drawing is that, but more and more it's kind of been the tricks because he hasn't been quick enough to actually create the separation. I think another guy we got to talk about, unfortunately, is Joel Embiid, and we'll talk about him and his game later, obviously against Miami tonight. But it's maybe not quite as bad as it used to be, but it's still. And there's one play today. This is one where, and I loved it that they didn't call the foul on this one, and I also loved it that in the 24 Olympics they never called the foul on this. So Joel gets a pass basically right at the charge circle. All he has to do is just turn over his left shoulder and just shoot a layup. He's 7'2". He's got a massive size advantage on everyone else. And instead, what he does is he feels somebody coming. Instead of turning away from the defense for an easy layup, he turns over his right shoulder, does the old extend the arms as far as he can, and just throws them into the defender who's coming over. And like, yeah, you know what? Maybe that's technically a foul, but just go fucking score the ball. You're right there. It's a layup. Just shoot it. And so Embiid is another one of these guys where early in his career, like his skill level, his size was amazing. You know, he was really exciting on defense as well as a rim protector. And now he's just kind of slow. The other thing too is just you're always feeling like, all right, is he going to fall down? Is he going to hurt himself right now? Like, well, he just like he's so rickety.
It's not is he going to fall down? It's is he going to get hurt when he falls down? Because he falls down constantly.
Yes.
And the other thing with Embiid, who's going to be, I'll tell you right now, he's going to be my number one. I think that Embiid, like, he's so frustrating to watch. Is also that he's this horrendous defensive rebounder, like giant human being, just doesn't box anyone out, doesn't engage. I mean, there were a series of plays. We'll talk about it later in the game. Like, he had a successful game overall, but like never crosses half court. And like, it's not like he's playing these crazy minute totals anymore. And like, yes, I feel sympathetic to Embiid because he's had these massive lower body injuries. But
yeah, although also in part probably because he didn't take good enough care of himself.
Also probably true. And so, yeah, Embiid is my number one. I think that, and it's wild to me because one of my favorite things in high level basketball is passing, that a lot of the guys on my list are very good passers. I wouldn't put Embiid in the very good standpoint, but he's at least a capable passer and at times a willing one, but he doesn't really activate that part of it. And so like, I don't know that Embiid ever would have been top 5 for me, but there were a lot of points where he was more enjoyable than now. And this is something also that happens with players who have to, due to physical limitations, become a different version of themselves, where they kind of have to lean into some of the less enjoyable parts of their game to try to hold on. And so like Embiid, I would say he's been more, I mean, he only played 19 games last year, but like he's been better this year than he was last year, but like he's a really tough watch. I'll throw out another couple.
Yeah, well, he holds the ball a lot.
Oh,
and I have especially like Jalen Brunson. All right, if you want to be a simulator, that's one thing. Like, you're 6'2", maybe you got to do that to get by. I don't think he does, but whatever. Like, when you're 7'2", no, I don't love the foul drawing behavior. It's like if you just, and a lot of times he'll like turn it over trying to do that stuff too. Yeah, you're gonna move on to somebody else.
Yeah, there are a couple others that I want to mention. Anthony Davis, who at other points in his career was a very fun watch. Like, we've seen little bit of the pop of his offensive game go away. He's more of the like jump shooter version of Anthony Davis, which is not as fun. And he's still a very good defender, but he's not the superlative defender that he was early in his career. So Davis isn't in my 5, but he is a much less enjoyable watch now than he was even 2-3 years ago.
No, that's true, especially taking a bunch of long twos, falling down, not getting back on defense, like not being in great shape. There's also and while I sympathize with the big men in general, because, you know, I was the one always getting yelled at by my guards when I played in another lifetime, and like, they're like, oh yeah, just dunk that shit. I'm like, okay, yeah, like, you dunk that shit. Like, I got 3 guys on me down here. Like, fuck off. But like, Donovan Clingan, Rudy Gobert, guys who are just like 7'2" and just somehow manage to flub the pass, get fouled, miss the free throws, miss the dunk, throw the ball off the backboard on a layup. Yeah, it's tough. I love watching Gobert on defense, but the offense is pretty unwatchable. Same thing with Clingan. So, all right. Anybody else you would need to throw out there?
Yeah, I'll throw out a few other point guards. Trae Young, just with the best parts of his game, other than the passing, have toned down, and he's not as good as the foul drawing. My former college, not teammate because I didn't play at UCLA, but Russell Westbrook. He's a tough watch as much as I appreciate what he has done in his career.
You're right. I mean, he's like he just has the complete lack of self-awareness is miserable with him.
Well, and then I get to be the one to do this. Congratulations to San Antonio for signing Mason Plumlee to a 10-day, so we get to include Mason Plumlee in this list.
Oh man, I wanted to end the show 2 days in a row with Mason Plumlee. The left-handed jumper actually is much smoother than his old right-handed jumper and free throw. But unfortunately, Plumlee is now such a bit player that all the annoying stuff they used to do, like trying to post up, dominating the ball, demanding to like try to throw all these crazy backdoors, bringing the ball up in transition. He doesn't do any of that anymore. And unfortunately, he's been cowed. So yeah, he sadly can't be on this list anymore.
Yeah, I mean there are a bunch of like ball stopper, limited passing guys that we haven't mentioned. Gigi Jackson, Cam Thomas, those types of guys. And yeah, I mean they're worth mentioning, but we're gonna probably stay on the hyper. Oh, I wanted to also mention Cameron Payne's jump shot, just his jump shot. Like we watched Sixers Heat today, and it's just like every time it's just like, oh god, there are other guys that are like that too. But it's like a little jump scare every time.
Yeah, Sadiq Bey would probably be one of those guys for me. Also, just the way the jump shot comes off his hand. Not a huge fan, even though he's not a terrible shooter. Zach LaVine, he's not. I think a lot of people would probably say him. Obviously, on defense, that's the case, but like he still doesn't hold the ball that much. He moves pretty quickly. Like, he can be good in transition. I think when he was playing in Chicago, it wasn't too bad. It's just he's on the Kings. So same thing with Domantas Sabonis, who just a lot of just plowing in, one of the biggest off-arm guys. It doesn't really get off the ground very much anymore either, and doesn't really defend. Like, he at least plays hard, so he wouldn't be in my bottom five. But his offensive game, like anybody who, like, he's another one of these guys where he's basically a one-trick pony when he has the ball. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's actually Austin Reeves would probably have to be up there a little bit for me too, just because again, like what percentage of the plays that he makes are simulations and flops. Don't really love that much either. The guys who, any kind of like a loose ball situation where somebody breathes on them and then they fall down and force the referee to call foul. Chris Paul used to be. Joel is hilarious with that. Obviously, Reeves is another one of those guys who does that a ton as well. So like I hate that move. It's like, just like, yeah, okay, you could draw a foul, but like I'm trying to watch a game here. Like, just keep it moving. We don't need like a 45-second stoppage for a foul because you got breathed on, when you could have just stayed on your feet and started the fast break instead after getting this defensive rebound. All right, give me your top five. All right, well, Danny is frozen because Comcast, hopefully they'll never become a sponsor, but oh, you're still here? Well, you are frozen in terms of your actual
yes,
your movement on the Comcast is the only internet provider available in San Francisco, and no matter how good of a download speed you get, their upload speeds are going to be absolutely terrible. Like, they're just doing it to be cheap. Sonic Fiber, baby, in the East Bay. That's what we're.
They're in certain parts of my city, but not in the part where I live, which is unfortunate. So Joel Embiid is my number one. I already said that at the outset. But I guess the rest of that I'll go 5-1. It's hard. I think who the five are is clearer for me than what order they would be in. I think I'll go James Harden 5th, Lou Dort 4th, Brendan Ingram 3rd, Luka Doncic 2nd, Joel Embiid 1st.
Man, how far Luka has fallen. I think both Towns and Brunson are going to be in my top 5. I do agree with you on Dort as well. It's really pretty annoying. Especially when they started like trying to hype him up for defensive player of the year. Like, nah, come on. He's like the 4th best defensive player on his own team. Yeah, okay. So Luka's got to be like the crying is just completely out of control as well. So I'm gonna probably put Brunson number 1 and Paulo Banchero number 2 at this point in time. Then Luka number 3, Joel number 4, and actually I'm not going to put Jordan in the top 5. I'm going to go with Karl-Anthony Towns as number 5. Let's hit a few of these comments before we move on here. Charles said, "Do we find Jaylen Brown's game aesthetic?"
I don't think it's bad, but I don't think he's one of the more fun, like one of the fun guys to watch. I think that his pick and roll game has improved, but like the toolsy wing, I think they have to pop a little bit more than Jaylen Brown does. So I don't mind him, but I wouldn't say he's like in the most aesthetically pleasing to me.
Yeah, I would say so too. He's not quite as crazy in transition with the dunks. Like his jumper, he really shoots it on the way down. You're like, is this really how you're going to shoot it? Now it's been going in. And he's a solid defensive player, but he doesn't make, a bunch of really smart plays that I appreciate. Then Charles also asked, so what about Derek Queen?
There are parts of Derek Queen's game that I do enjoy, but I think that his limitations defensively. So I want to see where Derek Queen goes over the next couple of years. But like he has the tools to be a player I enjoy watching even more than I do now.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be good enough defensively to me, but there's nothing he's really doing other than passing that I like, I would say. Okay, so yeah, we can wrap up the public version of this pod here on YouTube at least. So please give us a like and subscribe. Thanks everyone who commented, and you can continue to comment as well and let us know who is the most and least aesthetic players in the NBA. Should we just go through our lists one more time for everybody here?
Sure, we can do that. So my most aesthetically pleasing was I'll go from 5 to 1. Steven Adams 5, Dylan Harper 4, Tyrese Haliburton 3, Nikola Jokic 2, Stephen Curry 1.
Yeah, I had Harper at 5, Shea at 4, Jokic at 3, Victor Wembanyama at 2, and Steph Curry at number 1. And how about your least aesthetic?
James Harden number 5, Lou Dort number 4, Brandon Ingram number 3, Luka Doncic number 2, Joel Embiid number 1.
And I had Karl-Anthony Towns at 5, Embiid at 4, Luka at 3. Who's my number 2? Am I forgetting someone now? I know Brunson was number 1. Oh, Paolo was number 2. Yeah,
yes.
There you go. And Paolo number 2, Brunson number 1. All right, then. Well, we will package it on YouTube, but if you want to check out the rest of it, you can listen to the Dunc'd On podcast or, of course, subscribe to Dunc'd On Prime.